Until August 1991, Gorbachev tried all kinds of ways but failed to save the Soviet Union. At this time, he repeatedly mentioned the socialist choice made by the Soviet Union in 1917 when it was first established. This is also the first time in human history that the path of socialism has truly been realized. From 1917 to 1991, after more than 70 years, in the end, the Soviet Union collapsed. Is there any problem with the socialist path? Is there something wrong with the theory of Marx and Engels? Of course no. The truth is obvious. After all, there are still very successful cases of socialism on Earth. And what about the Soviet system? It is actually not a complete socialist body. Although it does practice part of the socialist system. But in the same way, the Soviet Union actually had some very important non-socialist characteristics. Some of them are like feudal remnants of the Middle Ages. After all, the Tsar has ruled on this land for too long. After kneeling for a long time, the people seem to be unable to stand up. On the other hand, the Soviet Union had some characteristics similar to capitalism, because socialist and capitalist will inevitably influence each other. Just like in many capitalist systems, many socialist characteristics have been shown today. The most obvious non-socialist characteristic of the Soviet system is the minority of elites. It monopolizes political power. Did the Stalin era adopt a form of domination left over from the Middle Ages? What he was admired later. Just like an omniscient and omnipotent God, nothing different from the medieval monarch. What after Stalin? The Soviet political system. In fact, it has evolved into a more modern oligarchy. Even the post-Stalinian era. Become a little gentler. That's also very authoritarian. He basically ignored the basic civil rights and political freedoms of the Soviet people. The people basically have no freedom of speech. There is no freedom to express opinions. No freedom of association. Not to mention participating in the formulation of national policies. The elites in power of the upper class. He just wants to control all aspects of the details of the people's lives in all aspects. And the Soviet people. It seems that the relationship between feudal serfs and manor owners in the past. They have a very rigid household registration system. Fix all citizens in a specific town. Relocation is prohibited without official permission. The same is true for the Soviet Union's economic power. Like political power, it is also very undemocratic, highly authoritarian. The Soviet Union's economic decision-making power was divided into many levels. The most important economic decision, that's made by the central government. Then it is conveyed to the subordinates layer by layer, in such a refined system, from the head of the company to the ordinary worker. Their role is to execute commands from superiors. Internal relations in Soviet factories. That is a paternalistic management style. Among the large Soviet enterprises, the staff team is very stable. The job is also very stable. You can't move to other places, either. The company provides canteens for employees. Provide kindergartens for their children. You're going to take a vacation, then let you go to the designated tourist location. Some special consumer goods are also required. All of this is like the feudal manner of the patriarchal system. There is not much difference from the era of serfdom. And those social elites in the upper class of the Soviet Union want to have very large material privileges. That's not socialist. So what if it's reasonable? Under the socialist system, what everyone is ideal is to allocate on demand. At least everyone is equal. The gap between the rich and the poor can't be too big. But what the Soviet Union did was to treat it differently. Senior officials, elites, they have a special way to get consumer goods. There are some special stores, only open to them. Provide them with some high-quality products, including goods imported from the West. There are even some special factories, specially produce high-quality products for elites. Then do you think this is socialism? There's also housing. There are special construction companies for the elites. build comfortable and spacious housing. Senior officials have special treatment. This includes the use of luxury cars, villas, etc. Whether it is a special store or a special treatment, all are strictly determined according to the position level. This system of privilege is before reform. The official has never admitted it, because this is obviously in conflict with the ideology of socialism. But it existed for a long time in the Soviet Union. The best things in the Soviet system are not sold. You're useless to have money alone. Consumption according to your status and your position. That's inseparable. This system of status and position is higher than wealth. That's equivalent to semi-feudal, but it was an engine of the Soviet bureaucracy. And this path to privileged life, there's only one. That is, you have to climb up desperately in this system. Once you climb to the high position, then you have everything. Once you can't climb up, you'll have no privileges. And you will say goodbye to a comfortable life. Then you say such a social system. Do you think it's socialism? You see, the United States and Britain have a multi-party democracy. Japan and Italy have long been one-party rule after the war. Post-war Spain and South Korea are autocratic. Nazi Germany is a terrorist dictatorship, but they all belong to the capitalist system. This is okay, because the bourgeoisie in these countries occupy most of the means of production. Capitalists hire workers to compete in the market for selling goods. But what is the socialist system like? Socialism must be based on public ownership. Then the state nature, civil rights, and decision-making mechanisms in political and economic systems all must be closely linked to the definition of socialism. The Soviet Union does have some important characteristics of socialism. But what the Soviet Union lacked was fundamentally and fatal. It is the people's rule over the country and economy. The people have become negative workers rather than active participants. Let's look back now and see that we must understand the evolution of the Soviet system well, until the final end. Then it is very necessary to learn more. The elites of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union who manipulated this system. What kind of group is he? General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, members of the Politburo. Then the ministers, Central Committee members. There are probably a few hundred people in total. This level forms one of their highest circles of power. These people at this high level formulate national policies, make important political and economic resolutions, and he has the right to propose a change to a senior leader. But it is definitely not enough to rely solely on them to rule a big country with a population of over 100 million. Therefore, the top leaders of the entire Soviet Party and the country also included the vast number of officials. After World War II, the number of elite ruling class of the Soviet Union could reach about 100,000. Who is the one who forms this power class? That must have been the very loyal revolutionaries in the Bolshevik Party in the earliest days. But after the Bolsheviks came to power, they became the ruling party. Many people come in without relying on revolutionary beliefs. Then there are some impurities. Many people come in to gain power and material privileges. Of course, there are some people who think that the prospects for building a new society are good. In early 1914, the Bolshevik Party had only 24,000 people. In 1917, they took power and established the Soviet Union. At the end of that year, the number of party members immediately expanded to 300,000. Then in 1928 to 1.3 million. In 1933, the total number reached as many as 3 million. Stalin carried out a great purge in the late 1930s without moral integrity. All the early old Bolsheviks have been basically cleaned. That cruel cleaning. Do you want people who truly believe in socialist concepts to be attracted to the party? Later, as the Soviet elite became increasingly stable after the war, he has slowly become a revolutionary organization when he seized power in 1917. A completely different team. The power of the Soviet Union after the war required many personal conditions. First of all, you need to receive a formal education. At that time, we usually did technology and engineering. Climb the fastest and most delicious. Khrushchev is an example. And at that time, the relationship established by young people in the Soviet Union in schools and the Communist Youth League could help them grow step by step. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union has very strict hierarchies. Such a system requires you to be absolutely loyal to your superiors. Then you may be promoted. If you want to be promoted, you must keep in mind and follow the official route. This line is to establish socialism and communism. All party members and officials must serve the people selflessly, etc. Although some people really believe in this official route. But in the end, most people in the Communist Party of the Soviet Union are verbally irrelevant. They believe that just shout a few slogans on the right occasion, then everything will be fine. Any such a huge team, there will definitely be unevenness. But in the Soviet system, in addition to senior officials, the ruling class has another characteristic. It's your own power and your own position. It cannot be passed on to the next generation. Although many senior children can easily enter good schools and get good educational resources, you can also get better work when pulling the clothes. But the vast majority of senior management and their other half, the professions that the second and third generations of senior officials usually work in the Soviet Union, are just academic circles. The diplomatic sector and foreign trade sector in the press. The vacancy of positions of senior Soviet leaders and elites is largely from workers and farmers, by getting education and then climbing up and filling it up layer by layer. Like Khrushchev, Brezhnev is really born in ordinary families. You can't deny this. So the Soviet elite members faced a very contradictory reality. They have great power, one call and 100 responses. The Soviet Union, one of the two superpowers in the world, is in charge of. However, they are restricted everywhere. They are constrained by the party's discipline and regulations, forbid them to accumulate wealth individually. It is impossible for them to pass their power to the next generation, except for a few extremely senior leaders. All of them are basically completely attached to the bureaucracy at the top. You want to keep your own place. You need to be recognized by the superior party organization. Once you lose favor, noti usibit, although it does not mean going to jail or beheaded. But while losing the seat, what you lose is material benefits. There are plenty of powers in the Soviet Union's system of fundraising. So the officials have no choice, only accept the rules and regulations of this system. This is the Soviet system. You said, this is a socialist system. In theory, it is indeed carried out according to Marxism. But in fact, it has many non-socialist impurities. So the Soviet Union's socialism cannot be said to be a very pure socialist system. Therefore, the failure of the Soviet Union cannot be said to be the complete failure of the socialist path.